Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 30, the actual episode 30, and not the false episode 30 from last episode 30. This is the real episode 30 of the Spice Squadron. Ichiwa,
Hey guys.
my fellow Ewoks, and a yub nub to you too.
Game's out.
Game's out.
Cards in hand.
Go check out the
Feels
gameplay. Do
good.
it. Do it. Go right now.
Oh, yeah, go check it
Go
out.
check out the gameplay.
Go check it out.
Pause this video. Go check out, frankly, the incredible games we played.
On a different tab.
On a different tab, open it, play them both at the same time.
One in one ear, one in the other ear. Have TikTok in front of you, and also Subway Surfer.
Family Guy best moments.
Yeah.
Oh my god. If you were there for the stream, firstly, we got a couple of things to get out of the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We loved every second of it. Even if I got a little bit sleepy at the end of it. I was so tired. We were up till like 2 a.m. the night before. We woke up at like 7 or 8 because we just couldn't sleep. And then it was like opening all the boxes and started crashing hard. And then we went to a draft, so which was great.
Which was a lot of fun. We're very sorry that we didn't get a gameplay out for you that we said we'd get out for you yesterday. But trust me, this gameplay makes up for it.
This one's got a showcase.
Go check it out. It is actually so much fun.
Awesome.
If you want to see two value decks have
Duke
an
it out.
absolute slogfest.
But like in a cool, fun way. No, it's so good, and it's a great exemplary example of Star Wars Unlimited and what we're going to talk about in this week's episode. But one more thing before we get out of the way, James, how many subscribers do we have?
Over 200.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
You guys are actually incredible.
You guys are actually the best.
We love talking with you. We love that you support us. At you. We love talking with you on live stream. It's been a real fire in our swoo hearts since the live stream and the release. We knew it was going to be big and fun. Didn't know it was going to be this big or this fun. So it's been incredible.
I don't know about what you guys have found with your locals, but our locals has gone nuts for swoo.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. We have at least 5 stores running local events every week.
Not a single one has dipped past like below 13 people. The first one we went to was a draft. There was 27 people. Second one we went to, there was like 18 people. I went to one just the other day at a more quiet store, and even that managed to get 15 people in for swoo. And then we're going again tomorrow. So
And I dare say we'll have more than 15.
yeah.
It's honestly been huge and massive. And to anyone who met us over the weekend, anyone who said hi to us if we hadn't met you before, even if we had met you before, thank you so much for saying hi, saying that you enjoyed our content.
We love you.
It is honestly the most humbling thing ever, and I am aware that when you do it, we go... But it's a deer in headlights moment. We don't expect it, and it happens, and we kind of freak out a little bit.
Yeah, it's lovely to meet people. I met a player yesterday at Locals. His name is Noodle. Hi, Noodle. And he was very lovely. He talked about our podcast. I played a game against him. He had a really good Mono Sabine deck, which actually gave me a run for my money at one point, considering the deck I was playing. And he's a big Rebels fan as well. So I love that. But it's wonderful to meet you all. We hope that we get to meet you all more. If you're around, please come in. Please come to local game stores. And if you're not around, please go to your local game store anyway. Get your own community for swoo started.
Absolutely.
The game is booming. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But speaking of booming, last week we talked about you've got your pre-release cards, you've opened them, and you're building decks now. We thought we would now go through each color and we do a deep dive of one meta deck and one Spice deck. One Spice Squadron checking in.
We would say bad deck, but at the end of the day,
There aren't
a lot of bad decks.
If you go check out the game, like if you watch this first and you sit there and you see the deck we talk about and you're like, why would that ever be good? Just go check out gameplay, because I have played that Glook deck about in 2 locals now, and I've gone 4-0. Oh, I played it in 1 local, sorry. I played it a lot outside of locals, and I barely lost with it. And I went 4-0 at our first locals. And I versed some really tough decks, like hard control Boba, some really tough ramp. I versed the green-blue Iden meta deck. I versed a Leia. Like, it was tough, but like without a doubt that deck's meta. So it goes to show you that there isn't any bad leader in Styles Unlimited. The 2 decks we're talking about, first up, we're going to cover off green, blue Luke Skywalker value. And then after that,
I'm going to hit it up with a little bit of that Chewbacca yellow.
Yes,
I know.
please.
Not the color you expected, not the color I expected I'd be playing with it either, but
It gets there.
It gets there.
really gets there. It is pretty awesome. And it actually surprisingly has a lot of counters to things like aggro, where you can just Sentinel in a Falcon and be like, come get me.
I'll bounce back to my hand, Sentinel again next turn.
Swing your A-Wing into it, your A-Wing dies. Don't swing your A-Wing into it, and I swing mine into yours and it dies. Seems like a fair trade. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. But before we continue, of course, that remains to be said. We're only covering off 2 of those blue leaders. There are other really exceptional blue leaders. Krennic, Iden, and even Chirrut. These are all 3 leaders that are really solid with deck constructions in their own way. I'm sure we'll be covering off them down the line. One big motivator for the fact of us covering decks, comment down below. If you want to see us build a deck or deck tech,
absolutely.
just comment, we'll do it. But suffice to say, we're well aware that Krennic and Iden Green are incredible decks. They're just incredible.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to be covering off much of the villain side of things. At the end of the day, I feel like a lot of the really good villain stuff is going to get covered off in the green section of what we're talking about.
I feel like green's just going to be 2 like villain leaders probably, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. And having said that, we're not necessarily doing that color leader. It's kind of just a deck that focuses on that color more than the rest. And I feel like even though, yes, Krennic and Iden are both blue leaders who run blue in their deck, the focus
Majority
is more
green.
on the green.
Yeah. The green villain stuff is kind of insane, whereas the blue hero stuff is nuts. So it's one of those things where definitely don't discount Iden or Krennic. They're both absolutely fantastic. They're both, I would consider them near or on meta. I do feel, though, that Gluck currently outvalues them and outpaces them in that regard, which is why he's a more high-tier leader. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First thing I want to cover off is some of the basic core strategy with Luke. I'll cover off the leader, what he does, cover off the base and what he does, and then we'll talk through some of the basics in the core strategy of what the deck is aiming to do, what kind of deck it falls into as control, mid-range, or aggro. So starting off with Luke Skywalker, faithful friend. He is the starter deck leader, and a leader you would have picked up from your pre-release packs if you went to one.
Absolutely.
He is a blue hero or vigilance hero leader, and on his front side he says, pay 1, tap him as an action, and put a shield token on a friendly hero unit that entered the battlefield this phase.
Indeed.
He then deploys at 6 resources, and he is a 4/7 Force Rebel, not a Jedi. He is not a Jedi unit, he is just a Force Rebel.
I think one of the main things about that is that rebel keyword. It is
Wing
important.
leader, fleet
it
lieutenant.
does matter, and it's a huge part of why this deck can get so much value so easily.
But also the Force keyword matters a lot as well, because you've got Jedi lightsaber, one with the Force, everything like that. But his flip side is on attack, put a shield on a friendly unit. Pretty great. And then the base I'm using, best base in the game if you're running green. It is Iadu Conversion Complex, or Energy Conversion Complex, ECL. Epic action, ambush in a unit with a cost of 6 or less.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a reason why this deck is so played. But at the end of the day, you need to have cards that you want to be ambushing in with their space.
Oh, yeah.
And there are definitely cards in this kind of card pool that want that. We're going to talk about a couple of cards. Like you can ambush in a lot of things, like just the Echo-based Defenders or the Battlefield Marines to clear something small off the board early game.
But there's a few that are just like
really big for this.
Namely, I think there's 2. 2 huge ones that sting out to me.
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind, and the biggest one in my opinion, and this card was overlooked a lot before the ECL kind of came along, and then when it did, it was like, oh, this is amazing.
This is an incredible
and
card.
that's Kanan Jarrus.
Yeah, baby, let's go! We ranked him low on the Spice-ometer. I'm redoing it. He's a 5 out of 5, and I should have done it when I first saw him. I love him. You love him. You better love him. It's the best Jedi in the history of Jedi. It's Kanan Jarrus, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
This card is nuts.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, he was good, and the reason we discounted him earlier is because it was a bit of a slower meta. Now that things have sped up, yes, he is still a removal target, which actually necessarily isn't a bad thing. Kanan being able to bait removals, pretty great. But ambushing Kanan in to kill a unit and make them mill and heal is frankly pretty nuts.
And the 4 damage breakpoint is nothing to be scoffed at either.
Not at all.
It's something that can take out a lot of things, and with his 5 health, he can
live.
survive a lot of those things too. Taking out things like Bosks that have come in, Echo-based defenders, taking out Ezras, taking him out a whole suite of things.
There is a large array of cards that Kanan can kill and get immediate value off of.
Yeah.
He is an incredible 4-drop. Not to mention the base synergies are the fact that he synergizes with Wing Leader because he's a rebel, Fleet Lieutenant because he's a rebel, and then you've also got Jedi Lightsaber, and once again, the Force is with me. Playing a Kanan swinging in, he gets damage, and if you're able to claim and he lives the next turn, playing the Force is with me can be devastating. Putting a shield on him, 2 more counters, he swings in, it's incredibly good. Kanan is a powerhouse unit. I think, might as well tell you right now, but Luke Skywalker is a mid-range value deck. Every play he does, he wants to get ahead. He cares about how much your opponent gets ahead, but every play he does isn't just a hindrance like control. It's just so that he gets the outweighing value in his favor. And then the second card that's really good to ambush in is little old Yoda. Paying 3 to ambush a Yoda in, honestly, is not bad. He's got Restore 2, he can hit stuff, and then usually once Yoda has hit something, even if it's small and killed it, a lot of the time people are hesitant to actually go into Yoda, which gives you the opportunity to lightsaber him up. Or Forces.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things where the more experienced players will realize how much of a threat Yoda is and say, you're going to get the draw anyway eventually. Let's just give it to you now and get him out of here. Yeah. But there is that kind of fear of like, oh, I don't want to give you a card. It's like, then you can kind of like
you take
advantage of that, absolutely. I think we talked about him just before and with kind of Kanan and Yoda and Restored Arc being a huge turn 1 play for that Luke deck. Being able to just...
Early healing
and early space has always been really good. That arc has been good since the day one. We've had it since day one of
It's been great.
And it's been great
consistent,
then.
If run blue, put arc in. Yeah. Why not?
And to round that out, obviously, we have those 2 green staple cards of Battlefield Marine and Echo-based Defender that are...
nuts.
Just so good.
I don't know, like, they're wild. And then another really good card in this deck that facilitates value that a lot of people don't run in a lot of other decks, which is fair enough, but it's Alliance Dispatcher in Luke is frankly absurd, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Turn 1 and put a shield on him. A lot of people just go, I don't want to deal with that anymore. They go, I can't, I don't want to waste the resources. And that is a huge problem for you if you do that. Because that means the turn they flip their Luke, they play a Luke. That means the turn before they flip their Luke, they play an Obi-Wan. That means on turn 2, you get to play Kanan Jarrus.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a card that we've, at least in our kind of local environment, if you're running Iadu Conversion Lab, it's something that you will use turn 1 to ambush to get rid of it before Luke can get that shield on it.
It can cripple Luke decks by doing that. It's wild. Like if I'm in the mirror match and they go, oh yeah, this ambush in my Battlefield Marine, kill it. Yeah. Like I'm not letting you do that. I know what you're doing. I know what you're up to.
Absolutely.
I'm not letting you do that.
It's absolutely huge. And then we start to move towards the mid-game and the back end of Luke, which gets very, very controlly in a way of just board state advantage.
Yeah.
So as we get into the late game, we start pulling out things and we start to see that Luke flip. We start to get a lot of... We can either go 2 routes of it, really. You can go the kind of route where you've already put down a bunch of stuff and you're just swinging, putting shields
Putting shields
on
on
it
everything.
and doing more, or you can start to put down the bigger drops, the things like Obi-Wan,
Put
where
shields on them too.
you swing into Obi-Wan, awesome, my Luke is now a 6-9.
Put the Luke's lightsabers onto Luke, heal him up, put shields on if he gets damaged. Put Jedi lightsabers onto him. There's even the route where you just beef Luke up.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you got to be careful. Like, Luke is such a big body by himself. Like, he's kind of overshadowed by the Vader in the starter deck of being, like, slightly bigger. But at the end of the day, he is one of the biggest leaders in the...
With the constructed benefits that Luke gets in terms of the hero cards, he can easily outvalue Vader.
Yeah.
Luke's lightsaber is better than Vader's lightsaber. It just is. And being able to go, awesome, you flip Vader, Luke's lightsaber on him, and then... one with the Force. Your Vader's just dead. Your Vader's just dead, and Luke has 1 shield on him still, 2 extra counters, 3 extra attack. You know, when he was attacking, he probably put a shield onto his Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah. And then you've got the late game. I mean, obviously the mid game, you've also got your blue staple removals. Sorry, we'll get to that quickly. Yeah, making openings, great. Heal, minus. Some control pieces in the form of Regional Governor to really hit people. I love playing Regional Governor turn 1 named Wing Leader against anything red-green hero. And then you've got takedowns, vanquishes. Pretty straightforward. 3 takedowns, 2 vanquishes. Just get it out there for what you really need.
And that's kind of fallen into the staple of a lot of decks that we build, is that kind of 3 takedown, 2 vanquish kind of package that we put into a lot of...
Are you building blue?
That I put into a lot of the blue decks, and I know a lot of people are, as time has gone on and Takedown came out, have been dropping those vanquishes from their decks. I think in these kind of value decks, being able to just say, tap 5, no.
Yep. Why waste resources trying to kill something when you can just kill it by paying 5? I don't want to have to spend a turn swinging my big Luke and a Battlefield Marine and my leader into it. And if someone plays a home 1, now the deck has a lack of space units, which is one of the big issues. But if someone drops a home 1, I don't want to have to deal with it. I just pay 5 and kill it. So that's where the balance out comes from. They start space racing you, all good. You've got enough restore on the ground, and you've got enough control pieces on the ground that you can outrace them as long as you play your cards right. That vanquish is necessary for when people play their big stuff. Fet's Fire Sprays. Home 1s, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Fet's Fire Spray is one of the biggest ones that Vanquish has always been for, and that's one of the things. It's like you're versing against the Boba Fett deck. Hold those Vanquishes.
Hold them.
And I've seen plenty of people be like, "Oh, you played 2 Fet's Fire Sprays. There's nothing I could do." And it's like we
vanquish it and then Luke it next turn. Speaking of, how good?
How good?
Really good legendary card. One that. Hot take. Currently, more meta usable than Vader.
Ooh.
I've seen a lot of people running Vader, but a lot of those decks I really wouldn't consider meta. I mean, like, yeah, of course you've got Iden and Boba, but Luke is running every blue hero deck, all blue mid-range value. And I would dare say that currently he's more usable. The Restore 3 on a 6/7 body for 7 that has the ability to just kill anything through shields, and if you play your cards right, kill even bigger things. Luke is an exceptional unit. He's hard to deal with. He's got the relevant keywords of Force and Rebel, and a bit of foreshadowing, I actually do think Jedi is going to become an incredibly important keyword in the future.
I agree
Obviously,
with that.
set 3 Twilight of the Republic, probably going to see a lot of cards that synergize with that. And I just think your Luke Skywalkers are going to be better, especially if we see something along the lines of top 5, add a Jedi to your hand maybe. Saving up for Luke Skywalker is going to be pretty
Speaking
great.
of something of, in case you don't you don't find your...
I love this card.
I'm setting it up for you to talk about it because I know you love this card, and it is a very good card in this deck, and I have not seen anyone else running it in their deck.
I don't understand why.
And that is U-Wing Reinforcement. Tell them why it's good.
So good. It's just so good. So, firstly, if running 5 copies of Luke wasn't good enough, yes, I said 5 copies, Because U-Wing Reinforcements is a green hero card. It costs 7. When you play it, you look at the top 10 cards of your deck, which is 1/5, and by that late in the game, probably a lot less than that. You take the top 10 cards, and you may play 3 units with a total cost of up to 7. That's nuts. Now, I don't understand why more people aren't running this, because this fits perfectly what the deck wants. No matter what you do, you're getting value out of it. I have never, and I mean never, ever felt bad about drawing or playing a U-Wing Reinforcements. And I have played this card a lot. Because at the worst case scenario, it's a Dispatcher, an Echo Base, and a Wing Leader on the Echo Base. Yeah. In a lot of the best case scenarios, I just fish out Luke.
Yeah, and one of the things about this is it solves one of the biggest problems about going wide on board, and that is hand size.
Yep.
At the moment, draw is not very good in Star Wars Unlimited because it is expensive. It is hard to get draw that doesn't cost you more than it's worth.
Yeah.
But with this, it's not draw, it's just being able to play cards out of your deck. So you're not using your hand for... That's a full turn where you just get to keep your hand, you get to stock up your hand, but you're still able to drop...
a Luke Skywalker.
Or multiple things. So you get dropping that Echo Base Defender, Battlefield Marine...
Regional Governor.
Or Wing Leader. Like, all 3 of those cards can come out, and you have not spent a single card from your hand, and that is not, especially later in the game, when you're doing that kind of value trades, that is nothing to scoff at.
I won a game because I paid 7. I looked at the top 10, and I went, it's a Fleet Lieutenant and a Fleet Lieutenant. So I'll play them both, and I'll swing with both my Lukes.
Yeah, that is just the kind of things that you can do. And it's one of those cards that is so versatile and so easy to play.
Yeah.
That
it's incredible.
Like, honestly, every time it's been used against me, it's been like...
How do you come back from that? Because what have they got in their hand? I don't know, because I didn't see really anything use it. They played 1 card and got 3. And every time someone's like, hey, I've only got 2 Lukes and I want to build this, I go, that's such an easy fix. Because instead of running 2 U-Wings, we run 3. It's an extra copy of Luke. And no matter what you do, the value is always worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think... are there any cards that we haven't really talked about that Luke deck yet?
Not particularly. It pretty much well covers it off that there's the well-established Rebels making up Battlefield Marine. Oh, let's just put up the deck list here. I'll send we'll get the picture up, and there it is. But obviously you've got your Rebel packages, your Alliance Dispatchers, Fleet Lieutenants, Wing Leaders, Echo Base, Battlefield Marines. And then you've got your Force packages with your Obi-Wans, Yodas, Lukes, Jedi lightsabers, and then Forces with Maze. That collates into a deck that, I really love thematically. I'm a huge fan of Rebels, and I'm a gigantic fan of all things Jedi.
Yeah.
And a really good value deck, which I love. I love value decks. So just like I'm happy to play a deck when my opponent goes, I slammed this big thing, and I'm not going, how am I going to get past this? And I go, nice. And I'll play my guy, and my guy, and my other guy, and I pay 7 on U-Wing for my 3 guys. So I love those kinds of decks. But have a look at that deck list. If you want to go see it in action, go check out the gameplay. But now we get to talk about a Despise.
A little bit of Spice.
A little bit of
Spice Squadron.
Spice
I love deck building. It's one of my favorite things to do. And when I got that Chewie showcase, I knew I was going to build it.
You were very happy.
The question became how. And the question became, what can I do to make this deck that everyone has seen as kind of a very low tier, smaller deck, usable?
Ooh. Yeah. Is it value?
It is. It is absolutely value. And I think one of the biggest things this Chewie deck I've found can do is it can get value from every single card you play. Squeezes
the value out of it.
Yeah, it's
like
one of those
really
things.
Does.
Like a lot of the times, the card you play on the turn you play it doesn't give you a lot of value. This does. It gives you value in so many different ways and is so defensive in a way that a lot of other decks just can't be. And to start with, I'm going to talk about 2 cards, which is the reason I went yellow. and one of the biggest cards that will not be run in almost any other deck, but it will be run every single time in Chewie, and that is Wilderness Fighter.
Good card.
And
Crafty Smuggler.
Crafty Smuggler.
Now, Crafty Smuggler is run in a lot of decks. Wilderness Fighter is not at all.
And you might be thinking, why these two cards? Why these two cards in such? Do you feel such a staple for this deck?
Ooh.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it because they're both fellas?
They're both fellas.
That's why, of course. There's no other reason that ties these two cards together.
And not the fact that both of them have the same keyword, shielded.
I was going to say grit.
If only. I wish they had grit. No. Shielded is very big in this deck because
Very annoying.
It's very annoying for your
Yeah.
opponent. The fact with Chewie's ability to tap him, play a card from your hand that costs 3 or less, and give it Sentinel for the turn, suddenly these 2 damage shielded boys that you can very easily ignore can't be ignored.
You can't ignore them anymore. You have to go into them. And let me tell you, it does not feel good to have to go Battlefield Marine to remove the shield, Echo-based Defender in it. Now both of them are on 1 health. That feels rough.
It doesn't feel good when you go to swing your Luke Skywalker and I go, oh, actually, this guy,
2/2 shielded,
this 2/2 shielded unit
has Sentinel, and I'm like, man, come on. And it's so inconvenient too, because that if I swing at him to remove the shield, Luke's in takedown range.
Yep. And it's one of those cases where it's so big to early game against aggro, but it's underestimated how good it is late game.
Oh yeah, it's
Paying 2 for a shielded Sentinel that either needs to be removed with removal,
which feels awful. I don't want to have to take down, let alone vanquish, a Crafty Smuggler.
Yeah,
but sometimes you can't afford to waste the 2 swings at that point in the game.
If he has Luke and Luke ready to active available on his field and no removal, I play Crafty Smuggler with a shield and he goes, well, now I got to swing.
That's 10 damage. There's 10 damage that got eaten by a 2/2.
Yeah. So these 2 cards are staples in this deck for a reason, and we're now going to branch out from those 2 cards into the next set of 2 cards that I use to kind of supplement what these don't have, and that is damage. Both of them are 2 damage things, and at the moment, 3 damage thresholds are huge. Sabines.
Yeah. A-Wings.
A-Wings. Echo-based Defenders. Battlefield Marines.
The whole shebang.
All these things are 3 health things. So,
Short Trooper.
Thinking about that, I've added 3 cards to kind of supplement that attack on these guys. And that is Shoot First.
Good card.
A fantastic card that is absolutely very high in value.
Love that card.
Snapshot Reflexes.
Underrated.
One of the most overlooked cards that I have ever seen. I think that card is fantastic, and I think a lot of people overlook how good it is.
One thing I've seen with Snapshot Reflexes, which has bugged me a little bit, is I've seen a lot of new players go, this is awesome, and then you get some experienced players and they go, oh no, don't run it. And then those newer players go, oh, okay, well, this person, they must know more than me, so I'll not run it. Run it! Snapshot Reflexes is awesome. The art's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
The card itself, breakpoints in Star Wars Unlimited are incredibly huge, and we don't talk about them a lot because it is a complexity and a nuance of the game, but adding a breakpoint and swinging whilst you do it is insane. Doing that with the Force Is With Me is nuts, and paying 4 for that card feels generous. Paying 1 to do it on anything, not just a Force unit, pretty great. You do get only +1/+1, but don't let that be overlooked. That, a lot of the time, can bump your 3 health to a 4 and swing into bigger units and have them live.
It can also take things out of stuff like takedown range and stuff like that, which is actually really good. Absolutely. But the third card that kind of fits into that same sort of category is Devotion.
Love that card.
Now, It does cost 2 this one, so it is a little bit more expensive than the others.
I think the payoff for it's pretty great.
But the Restore 2 is huge. I think if you go and watch the gameplay, again, I know we've said it a lot, but you can see that Restore 2 really come in handy a lot of times in keeping me in the game.
Put it on an arc, perhaps.
This allows these 2 health individuals to kind of get their full potential and be able to trade up even after. There's nothing better than playing it and with Sentinel that you have to swing something into it, take the shield off. I claim the next turn I shoot first into something to kill it, and he's still there. He's still around.
Yep, he's hanging out.
That's one of the biggest things about this Chewie deck is people just stick.
One card that I want to mention that I actually saw this and I giggled when I saw it, but it's actually really good. You guys like Echo Base Defender? What if Echo Base Defender, but yellow? With Chewbacca, your dreams can come true, because if you tap him and pay 3, you can play Swoop Racer. What? Are you sitting there going, what? Well, pick up your chaff pile right now and dig through it, because he's in there. It's a 3-cost, yellow 4/3.
If you would like to get rid of your hyperspace foil swoop racers, I am your man. I will buy them off you. I'll trade you a Vader for it.
What? Calm down, please.
Oh, no, please. I won't trade you a Vader for them.
He'll trade his hyperspace foil Boba.
No, but Super Racer is one of those cards that is really annoying when you give it Sentinel. Like, we know Echo Base Defender is really
Defender's annoying. Okay,
in my head,
straight annoying.
In my head, the most annoying part about Echo Base Defender is the turn you player.
Yeah, because it's just kind of like my plan, and then you're allowed. Then once it's down, it's like, okay, horse to eat. But now, Swoop Racer comes, and you're sitting there, and in your head, you're like, awesome. He's probably just going to play his shielded guys. Drops a Swoop Racer, and you're like, you're not allowed to run Echo Base. But he is.
I'm allowed to
And then
run it.
one thing with it as well is you either kill it or you don't. And not killing it's a mistake.
Yeah, because it's just, again, one of the big things about Echo Base Defender is if you don't swing into it, it just has a lot of damage to come at you. And Swoop Bike Racer is the same. It gets that Sentinel for the turn, and then it's just
Interestingly enough, Echo Base is, like, in this matchup, it's actually kind of funny because I would probably rate Swoop a little bit higher, and for one reason, Echo Base, you always have to swing into it. On the turn you play Swoop Racer, if you don't kill it, it's there then. Yeah, it's there. But you don't have to attack it, which means any other Sentinel that gets played, a Crafty Smuggler next turn, really puts in some work when you've suddenly got a 4/3 that's just coming at you every turn because other Sentinels are coming down.
It's no longer Sentinel, so
yeah,
you
so
can't swing
into
into it.
You just have to swing at the other Sentinel, which
It's one of those weird situations where
not
Chewbacca's ability actually made it better. Like, losing Sentinel actually made it better.
Because you play it and it has Sentinel, and then you might not be equipped enough in that turn to deal with it. But then after that, it's Wilderness Survivor, Crafty Smuggler, and you have to go into them now and waste resources, all the while the Swoop Racer's sitting there laughing at you going, should have killed me when you had the chance.
And now it's got a Devotion and Snapshot Reflexes on it.
Hitting you for 6, restoring 2. Seems pretty good to me.
Absolutely. Moving on from that, we have that kind of package there that is the defense package. It is very much a Sentinel with shield. We buff them up a little bit. We bring that to
the classic
now
blue removal package as well.
We've got the blue removal package of 3 takedowns, 2 vanquishes, and then the rest of the control of 3 regional governors and 2 Sparkle Rebellions to kind of keep that. To kind of limit, and those are there to limit your opponent and kind of take value away from them.
Spark Rebellion's really good. It's great selective removal, and I don't think it gets used enough. It can be absolutely destructive to your opponent if you do it turn 1 to them and rip their turn 1 play, because as a slower deck like Chewbacca, you don't really need a turn 1 play. But if you can hamper someone's Battlefield Marine and then turn 2 play a Cunning, Crafty Smuggler, or a Wilderness Survivor giving a Sentinel, then your opponent's in a way worse position. Or you could win the game by looking at your opponent's hand and going, oh, is that removal that you've desperately needed this whole game? And I'm just going to put that in the bin for you.
It's the kind of thing where there's a few decks that just kind of dump their hands to do some stuff, and they hold the big pieces.
Like Devastators or
like
Big
Devastators,
Invaders,
and they
or
only
Fetch
run
Fire
two of, and
Sprays.
they've resourced the other, and you go, or
Get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
And then my big plays come down, and they kind of take it to another level.
Needless to say, this card is almost a necessity in a game where overwhelming barrage exists.
Yes, absolutely.
This is
especially
definitely
against this deck. Even though shields actually play a really big part of protecting me against those sorts of things, it's still really important.
It can be debilitating in a game where your opponent spent a couple of turns not attacking and building up a board, and you drop a Sentinel, and then they go, sweet. Pay 5, overwhelming barrage. I don't care if I kill stuff. I'll just ping the 4 shields off of your guys, and now my guys, who are admittedly better statted, can just get in there and wipe your board. And then you're sitting there going, man, that was a lot of time wasted for them to just 5 resource. We know how good it is. It's one of those cards that definitely keep an eye out for it. And that's what Regional Governor's here for too as well. Name it. Name it. Name Wing Leader. Name that. Name, what are some big bad cards people could play? Perhaps Luke Skywalker and Han Solo.
Well, before we get to that, I'm going to go over
the big man,
the 2s and 2/2s that I run, and these are kind of my backup options when I don't have those shielded pieces in my hand, and that is 2 Cloud City Wing Guards and 2 Chewbacca's.
Both of them were, again, really annoying, and in smaller decks, getting a swing off with Chewie is great. Swing my Battlefield Marine into it. It dies. Well, I get to one-tap Chewie and I'll swing 3 at your base. Swing my Battlefield Marine into it. They both die. You lost 2. Chewie 3 for 1 you.
Yeah.
He dealt 3 damage and he killed 2 of your things.
Yeah, it's one of those cases where he has a lot of value in very specific places, which is why he's not 3 off.
Yeah.
He has a lot of value in very certain situations, and it's usually situations where people are going to need to put a lot of resources into trying to get rid of him or get around him. The Cloud City Wing Guard is just something to essentially, I don't have.
Sometimes you don't
I don't have Wilderness Fighter. I got this. I'll get this instead.
Sometimes you don't want to put Sentinel on you. Sometimes you might have a Yoda and you don't want to put Sentinel on him. You drop a Cloud City Wing Guard. Sometimes it's just good to play a Cloud City Wing Guard because someone Spec Force soldiered your Crafty Smuggler.
Which definitely happens. That is a card that against this deck does have a lot of use, and I've run this deck into Sabine quite a lot.
Spec Force Soldier Chewbacca leader. Woof.
Yeah, it's happened.
Oh, brutal.
But yeah, and speaking of Chewbacca leader, we're going to go up to the 7 costs, and there's 3 of them in the deck. One of them is my leader.
He's a brick.
He's a brick house.
He is.
Chewbacca leader flips and sits there and might attack?
It doesn't matter, frankly. Grit Sentinel turns out pretty good. And on the same turn that you're getting out a Luke Skywalker or a Han Solo to destroy your opponent's board.
Yeah.
And if they don't kill Chewie in that turn, okay, take like 9 damage.
Yeah, it's one of those cases where it's so hard. Like those big things, if the turn you play them, you really want to try and get rid of them. And Chewbacca just says, no.
You got to get through this.
These guys, like you're going to spend all of your resources to get through me, and they're going to get another swing in, which means Han Solo takes out 2 priority targets. Luke Skywalker gets that restore off.
Hits the base for 6. If you can't take out Chewie, it sounds pessimistic, but you lose. Sorry. Like, if you can't take out Chewie, the value that comes out every turn from smugglers, wilderness survivors, swoop racers, let alone Luke's and Han's, is absurd.
Let me tell you, if you have a lot of small guys on the board, I'm putting an Electro Staff on the guy.
Ugh.
It's...
Ugh.
Yep.
Good card. One Electro Staff, people. The leader is exceptional, especially because a lot of the time people just discount Chewbacca, but he isn't one that should be, and none of the leaders should be. Yeah, I know we made a tier list, and I know we like to make fun of IG-88, but realistically, there are no bad leaders or bad decks in SWU unless you're on Galactic Ambition. But that there isn't one, because every deck has the things it can do that just feel broken. Like Chewbacca, same turn, Han, or Luke. That's a gross turn. That feels so bad when it happens to you. Let me tell you from personal experience.
And some of the things that take this deck to kind of the next level in being able to deal with a lot of things. We have that arc, the same as the Luke deck. Very good.
Falcon.
And the Falcon also, very good. I was looking for a Sentinel for space, and I really didn't want to pay 4 for the System Patrol Craft. And I was kind of looking through my phone, and I was like, wait. Falcon. And it's such a good card for being able to take out, I think we talked about before, to take out those A-Wings, take out those red 3s are a big one.
It's so good because you play it, and people immediately go, I got to take Falcon out. So they swing into it and probably lose something. And then you go, cool, 3 at your base. And they go, yeah. And then they swing Falcon into it, and both of them die. And once again, just like Chewbacca on the ground, you've 3-for-1 to your opponent in space. That's great value.
With you go, awesome. I play it. They swing into it, kill themselves. I swing 3 into base. I bounce it back to hand. I can play it again as a Sentinel another time. It keeps coming back. And Falcons, honestly, we thought it would be a lot more expensive. It's a relatively cheap legendary right now. So if you want to play a deck like this, go get your hands on a Falcon. But the deck overall is really solid. It's got a lot of key pieces, a lot of things that get you ahead, and a lot of things that do get value. Here it is. There it is.
What? And I've got to say, that was probably the closest best of 3 we've ever had on the channel.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were not expecting that to be the closest best of 3 we've ever had on the channel. We did go to
Game 3. We did go check it out. We did get to Game 3. Man, it was good. Those games were really, really fun. And I know you're bringing that to locals tomorrow.
Absolutely.
It's going to be exciting. I'm going to play Space Cassian, which I built blue, red, so I'm going to see how that goes.
And that's not to say that it doesn't have its weaknesses, obviously.
No, every deck
the Chewbacca leader does have a few weaknesses, and the key ones being any sort of thing that gets around shields for those shielded units. So
a lot of blue hard control.
Make an opening, all of that. Sabine is very good because she can swing
the shield off, hits the
and
cunning,
then hits the cunning smuggler.
But a lot of the big ones, like Power of the Dark Side's really rough into this deck. Power of the Dark Side's really rough into my deck.
Power of the Dark Side is rough
really rough into
pretty
any
much
deck. Yeah. Turn 2 Power of the Dark Side, baby. Please don't. Cool art, cool scene, Vader hallway scene, fitting card, but stop. Don't touch me. Please. I'm too weak.
Chewbacca.
Chewbacca. And then what is that? Is that the only one on the field? Pay 3. So the best leader removal in the game, but all value decks, interestingly enough, really suffer to control. Who'd have thunk it? And they do tend to suffer to a lot of the same things. So removal that is not locked to any prerequisite like damage or bouncing, if it's just straight removal, is probably incredible against a value deck. Yeah. And then, weirdly enough, shielded units are really good into shielded units. Because the reason he's playing them is so that you stop attacking him, and the reason you're playing them is to just
keep attacking
just batter through. Boba Fett's pretty great into the deck. Boba Fett Disintegrator, because he's playing Sentinels, but in the turns that he doesn't, they've been on the field, just get through the shield and hit him. I mean, what isn't Boba Fett Disintegrator good at?
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like obviously, there's a lot of things where you can be like, oh, this deck loses to this deck loses to that, and you'll be able to do that with pretty much any deck that you come across.
We sat down and we were like, well, clearly Chewbacca loses to Luke. Not necessarily true. Don't always think about the negatives, and there will be games, and you do need to make sure that you're playing to your outs, but chances are your deck's probably a lot stronger than you think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And having talked about that, we've talked a lot about like the kind of hero blue side. We will go into the good cards in villain. We were talking about just before
Yeah.
that Power of the Dark Side, how
Power
good
of the
that
Dark
is
Side.
in removal.
Count Dooku.
And that is one of the biggest things about the villain side of blue.
It's actually a lot of removal. Villain has a lot more removal because villain gets access. Villain get access to make an opening takedowns and vanquish. Villain also gets access to Count Dooku's, Childsons, Del Meeko's, probably one of the best space units in the game, Inferno 4. Power of the Dark Side, I would dare say the best leader removal in the game. Avenger, if you really ever get to that point. I mean, Avenger's pretty good. Feels like a bit of a win more. An underrated classic that we recently have been testing out and has been putting in the hard yards, Gideon Hask. Don't underestimate Gideon Hask, but then not to mention the leaders, Iden and Krennic, both really good healing leaders, both really good leaders for breakpoints.
The kind of control
Both really
leaders
good leaders
that
for
do
damage.
really well with green as well. That's kind of usually their main go-to. But that blue villain package is what it brings to the table.
It's a
Is
lot of
control,
removal.
is removal, is that kind of annoying stickability, especially in whether you're going hero or villain. Mono blue is a really interesting choice.
Sure is.
Bluke is something that people should not ever underestimate in their lives.
Bluke's like the second best Luke deck behind Blue.
Yeah, and
Like,
it's
wild.
actually incredible.
I love Bendu.
Bendu's an incredible card, very, very good.
Bendu Protector's super solid, and Vigilance is... We said it was the worst,
It's very good.
and we were wrong. I consider it, out of the four, the OG cycle, it is the best. Healing, killing, and shielding on one card, and mill on 6. All pretty great. All really great, even.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would highly recommend looking into
Mono blue if you've got
Mono
the
Blue
pieces.
if you've got
It's
the
really fun.
pieces. I would highly recommend. I've seen a lot of people staying away from mono decks. I've not seen a single mono deck.
But weird.
I
I've
think
seen one.
I think that one of the big things I'm gonna say is try it out. Cunning is amazing.
Oh, cunning.
Aggression is amazing. Vigilance is amazing.
Command is
Those
there.
are the only ones that exist.
Command's there. No, Command's watching. Command's like one day.
one day.
One day. It'll be good.
So those mono decks are nothing and nothing to
Scoff at.
scoff at.
They're amazing.
If you come across a mono yellow Jin, you're probably versing me, but
Prepare to get tapped down and bounced. And
Yeah.
let me tell you, not pleasant.
if
good.
you're coming across a mono red IG88, it's also probably me. I might have a fixation on monocolor decks.
But if you're coming against mono blue, it's probably Bluke or
Or it's probably me
Krennic Mill.
playing Krennic.
Krennic Mill. I remember you were like, it's a bit of a mean deck, and we sat down and we played some games, and I got thrashed. I got taught a lesson.
That deck either loses horribly or is the worst experience you've ever played against in your life.
The worst experience I've ever played against in my life.
And there is no in between for that deck.
Oh God.
It's got a lot of pieces since the last like
Yeah,
the last time I built it didn't even have
It's
Power
got
of the
a lot
Dark
more-
Side.
It's got Guardian of the Wheels now, which is pretty great to just be like, oh yeah, resilient, devotion, protector. It's got Bendu.
Yeah, it's got Power of the Dark Side since I last played it.
It's got Bendu, pay 2, vigilance
One
for
of the-
2, mill 6 for 2.
One of the weird things about Mono Blue Krennic is sometimes you don't want to turn one play
Nah, because you want to keep the cards for
Charlton.
Charlton.
to get that 6/6 Sentinel.
Ew.
It's disgusting.
But we've given you a bit of a deep dive into the games. We've shown up the deck list here, get a good view of how they play and the deck list again in the gameplay.
And why we chose certain cards in the deck
yeah.
and why, and what kind of our thought processes when going into building these sorts of decks.
And then, of course, don't discount the other leaders we didn't discuss. There's a lot to talk about, and we don't want it to take up all the video. So we're going to do the deep dives for the next 4 weeks about the next 4 leaders. But after that, if you do want to see any specific leaders or deck techs, please put it down below. We will do it. We will love it, and we will build you your deck.
And what are we showing off next week? What color?
Red!
We're doing red.
We're going to do red! Because I want to... Cassian I want to play my Cassian deck.
Fair enough.
But
And you'll have to wait and see what I build for my more meta-focused red deck.
Spicy. But we, the Spice Squadron, Reese and James, will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.